So thank you all very much for coming. A very warm welcome to all of you here in the newsroom. A very warm welcome to everybody watching around the world. Sorry we're a little bit late. It's just the nature of these things, just keeping you waiting. So because we're a little bit late, that's good. It means I don't get to talk so much. But my name's Jenny Sargent. I'm the Managing Director of First Draft. We've put this series together, this new series, basically with the support of Google News Lab, but we're a coalition, so it's a First Draft coalition. So all 9 of our organisations, which you'll see in a moment, have come together to kind of work out a way that we can share our knowledge. Excuse me. We've called it First Draft Live for the reason that we know that there are conferences that happen around the world, there are workshops that you will go to, but very rarely do you get the opportunity to then come back and share what you've learnt with your peers, or you might have scribbled some notes, but you don't do very much with it. So between all of us today, you get the special guests, Eliza Mackintosh from Storyful, Eliot Higgins from Bellingcat, and Malachy Browne from Reportedly. Next in the series, you'll get mysterious other 3, which will be held in a different newsroom. And we're going to keep doing that until we can really kind of embed best practice and good standards around verification, social news gathering, and all the other things that are quite fitting for us to kick off here at The Guardian, because The Guardian's always been at the forefront, kind of had one foot in front, I think, of all kind of digital trends. So a quick plug for those of you who are watching on the live stream. You should be watching via firstdraftnews.com. It's a site that we launched last year, and it basically hosts case studies, best practice training, kind of quick 1-minute resources of all the things that we're going to be talking about today and more. So you'll find kind of updates on new tools and projects related to verification. You'll find a great write-up here from Joss Stearns about the recent Super Tuesday hoax. We've got these very simple how-to videos, and then the more sort of complex stuff about copyright law, which is a really useful thing to find. So bookmark that page, and you should be able to keep up to date with what we're doing. But for today, what we'll do is we're going to kind of obviously stream these presentations and then edit them down so that they will become resources on the site for you to access at a later date. You'll also see, for those of you in the room, we've got these natty notepads, which on the front cover, we've got our visual verification guide. So it's quite a complex thing, or it looks quite a complex thing, it's quite wordy, but it's a kind of traffic light system for you to follow through of the different steps of what, how you can verify a piece of content, and it demonstrates that there's no black and white. And you'll probably see that as the presentations go on today. Those of you watching online, you can just do a search on firstdraftnews.com for visual verification guide, and you can download exactly the same thing. So luckily, because we're a little bit late, no more from me. Oh, wrong slide, live streaming. I'm going to hop back, because hopefully the online viewers will have a different slide that introduces Mary Hamilton. Sorry, Mary. should have had your own slide. But Mary here is the executive editor for Audience, and she's just going to talk a little bit about how things are done here at The Guardian.
Hello, folks. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today, both in the room and on the live stream. I'm Mary. I'm The Guardian's executive editor for Audience. And part of my role is to oversee the ways that we treat people who participate in our journalism, and to look at the often unspoken contracts between journalists, contributors, eyewitnesses, uploaders, and our readers and our audience more broadly. And as I'm sure everyone recognises, this is an area that's going through constant change at the moment. Verification in UGC, user-generated content more broadly, because of the internet, is changing perhaps more dramatically than most other areas of journalism even. The change is being driven by social media primarily, and by its capacity to allow anybody with a phone and a network connection to act as a broadcaster or an amplifier of news in all its forms. The growth of the real-time web, especially through Twitter, has enabled every eyewitness to tell the world what they can see, and it also enables every reporter to respond in an attempt to gain exclusive knowledge. It's also enabled the growth of hoaxing, and the ease in which an image or a video can be divorced from its original context has made it trivial for mistakes to thrive and to appear truthful in many cases. The growth of real-time video, of live streaming, it presents additional challenges and additional complexities into this picture. The Guardian has a duty and a commitment to report the truth, to treat our journalists with respect regardless of whether they are professional reporters, and to act ethically in handling contributions from readers and handling UGC. We know from experience that the vast majority of our readers want to help us do our jobs well and want to see us do our jobs well. During the Paris attacks, when a significant volume of incorrect or inaccurate information was circling through social media, readers came to us to ask us what was truthful and what we knew. They also came to us to tell us what they knew was false, to assist our writers and our live bloggers by sharing their own detective work. That's not uncommon. In a breaking news situation, a lot of people want to know what they can do and how they can help. And for many people, because of the ubiquity of social media, that's one way that they can do something, that they can feel part of the situation, that they can feel like their activity is meaningful. And for some people, what that means actually, in reality, is sharing unverified images that confirm their own beliefs. But for others, that means turning to us to ask the questions that they can't answer themselves, or to offer us their expertise or their knowledge so that we can weave it into something larger and more meaningful. This is crucial work. We're still the gatekeepers of truth for our readers, and when we say something is real, is confirmed, is verified, that act of journalism remains utterly vital. In a world in which truth is often slippery, being accurate and authoritative is more important than ever. But in order to do that work, our newsroom and our news processes have to respond to the changes that we see on the internet every day. We have to be able to receive, investigate and verify not just tweets and Facebook posts, but chat posts and live streamed video. We have to understand how to verify posts on services that strip user information from uploads or that encourage anonymity, or even where the posts disappear once you've read them. And we need all of those things in place before a breaking news situation requires them, if we're going to respond with speed and integrity when a big story breaks. When it does, The Guardian is among the best in the world at involving and engaging our readers and eyewitnesses in our coverage. We're used now to using uploaded reports in our live blogs and to verifying UGC in real time, and doing the hard graft of sifting through eyewitness reports to find the information that moves a story along. We have to understand the impact, too, of being the people who possess these skills, and we have to take care of reporters and editors who see traumatic images on a regular basis. In this fast-changing environment, we're seeing a rise in violent images shared very, very widely, and how we handle, check, and verify those has a huge impact on both our journalism and on our reporters. It's important, again, that we get those processes right ahead of time, before news breaks, so that we can support our journalists and treat eyewitnesses ethically. But user-generated content isn't all about breaking news. It also helps us to dig deeply into investigations and helps us to unearth new stories that we might not otherwise find. When we build crowdsourcing and audience-focused story generation into our news-gathering processes, we can gain insight, add colour, and break stories that wouldn't otherwise be possible. We've seen that with The Counted, our investigation into police killings in the US, where our audience is helping us to build a database that wouldn't otherwise exist. And we've reported several deaths that would have gone unrecorded without tips from our audiences. We've seen it with our NHS project, where our readers' stories, both personal and professional, helped us flesh out and humanise our coverage. And we've seen it with the Millennials project, where the readers physically came to The Guardian to share their thoughts, their concerns and their needs, and to inform our commissioning processes. Each of those projects involves quite different tools and approaches. We've created live events, curated online communities on our own site and on social media, used our UGC platform Guardian Witness alongside other tools to gather reader stories and encourage them to share knowledge. Many of the tools that we use today didn't exist or existed in very different forms 2 years ago. We have to prepare for a future in which the tools we use change at a dramatic rate and develop processes that take advantage of that new technology while also retaining our core mission, to report broadly, deeply and accurately on the stories that matter most. So we're happy today to host First Draft News for this verification workshop and keen to see their work and hear their views on these issues. I'd like to thank Eliza, Malachy and Eliot for coming along today, and thank Jenny for hosting for us. Thanks to all of you for bringing your expertise to The Guardian, and thanks to all of you for coming along. Now over to Eliot, who's going to speak about geolocation, I think.
So a big part of verification is geolocation, which is using details from imagery, be they photographs or videos, to find the exact location something was originally produced. So I'm going to take you through some examples and give you an idea of what's involved. First, we're going to go to Libya in 2011. The video you're about to see is from a rebel group who claimed they had captured a town called Tiji. And you can see various details in this video. You can see, for example, this tank going down this rather wide road. You can see the mosque as well that's visible. Now, how do we find out exactly where this was filmed? How can we confirm this is where the rebels claim it were? What we have here is the mosque. You can see there's a minaret and there's a dome very clearly. There's a wall just below it as well. You can also see the tank. As I mentioned before, it's coming down a very wide road. There's 2 lanes. So what we do, we go to Google Earth, we type in the name of the location they claim it to be, and then we have a look for the widest road that's there. So we can zoom in and we can get a lot of detail from that. In fact, we can see enough detail to see how wide the road is. We can see the number of cars on the road, how many car widths it could be, and as we travel down the road, we can in fact find the mosque in question. And as we can see clearly here, we can see the minarets here and the dome here. So based off this information, we're able to say this is the location where this was filmed. Now, we just don't stop here. We don't say, great, we found the mosque, now that'll do. We start watching the video again and looking at the different details that are visible in the video. So for example, you can see the wall going around the edge, which is also visible in the satellite imagery. This curve is also visible. If you watch through the video, you'll see trees and shops and other buildings that are visible in the satellite imagery and also in the video. So this is a very simple example of a geolocation. Next, we're looking at a barrel bomb attack in Syria. Now, what you're seeing here is actually the first ever video of a barrel bomb that was posted online from Syria, way back in 2012. Now, to anyone, that would look like a very crude device. There's a handle welded onto the side, there's this black powder coming out of it. Really, that could be anything. And you had articles like this, Barrel Bomb Baloney from Russia Today, saying this was completely untrue. What Air Force would ever imagine using such crude devices? But with Syria, you had a kind of constant stream of videos coming from all over the country. And you had videos like this, where you can actually see in a moment a barrel bomb being thrown out the back of this helicopter. There you go. So the barrel bomb is just there, and it's just been thrown out the back of the helicopter. So that added to the evidence that was out there that this was actually something that was happening, rather than just videos from the ground showing the remains of these cylinders. Then we had this video, which actually is filmed inside a helicopter, showing a barrel being lit and pushed out the rear of the helicopter. Now, with any online debate, probably many of you have seen something similar to this, you get claims that this is fake, this was filmed in a soundstage on Qatar using Hollywood special effects. How can we know where this was filmed? Maybe it's from a different conflict. Well, we have an aerial view here, and another place we have a lot of aerial views is Google Earth. And we can in fact spend some time searching through the local towns and villages in that area and found the exact location, which is here. Now, we want to get a nice perfect match, so with Google Earth we can obviously rotate the image. And what we're able to do is overlay the image with that image. And we can see it's exactly the same location. All the buildings are in the same place, the roads is exactly the same. So we can confirm the location that was shown in the video is this location in Syria. So that's another way you can confirm imagery. Now, the Caesar photographs from Syria are a set of photographs collected by someone who was documenting the dead from the Syrian torture machine, I guess you could call it. And most of the photographs showed bodies, but this photograph was unusual because you actually could see the background. Just below, you can see that little black mark where you've censored the bodies, but the background is what we were really interested in this photograph because it lets us know where this could have been taken. Now, what you might be able to see just on the top left corner, very faintly, are two very large aerials on a hill. Now, this was claimed to be Damascus, and there's only so many locations in Damascus that could be, if it is Damascus. We also know what location this was claimed to be, so we can zoom in and have a close look at that location. And with Google Earth, you have a terrain view where you can actually see hills and mountains that exist in real life. So you can rotate the camera, put it on the ground where this photograph may have been taken, and you can actually see the hill, and on the hill there are in fact two aerials. I've put those two models there to represent them, but if we overlay the two images, you can see there's a very close match to what's visible. Now, that would not be enough to say that is definitely the same location. So what we do in the kind of work we do with geolocation is we break out the coloured boxes. We have images like this where we take all the matching visual elements in the satellite imagery and what we have below, and we highlight them. So here we've covered them in lots of coloured boxes. But for example, the blue box here of these trees is highlighted here. We've got the buildings highlighted in yellow. It's a rather lengthy process. I'm not going to take it for you now, but we basically, again, as we did with that first video, we review the image again, we review the satellite imagery and see what matches. And we look out for things that don't match, that should be there but aren't there, or vice versa. Now, there's something very interesting about this location, because just to the north, this is actually the presidential palace in Damascus. Now, how far away is that from this area where all the corpses are being documented? Well, in fact, it's just over 500 meters away. So, you know, President Assad himself could probably smell that if the wind was blowing in the right direction. But that just gives an extra level of detail about where this is actually positioned and the context within the city and the conflict. In this example, I was contacted by local Tunisian activists just before the election. A video had been published from a group of guys claiming to be Tunisian jihadists. They claimed they'd murdered some moderate politicians and they'd fled to the city of Raqqa in the Islamic State. The government in Tunisia were denying this because obviously that would make them look quite bad. So the question was, who was telling the truth? So this is from the start of the video. So at first glance, there's actually not that much information in the video. There's kind of just flashes of bits and pieces, a short shot of the background. It doesn't seem like there's too much there, but it's actually possible to find exactly where this was filmed. Now, in this first shot, what we have is the group of men walking across this background. The camera is moving. You don't get everything in shot at once, but what you can do is take different frames and then piece them together in quite basic software, and then you've basically got more of the background that is visible. And what we can actually see is there's this red roof building here. You can see 2 windows. You can see a kind of a stairwell and 6 windows here. And there's a building also in the background that's just about visible there. Now, we searched through the entire city and could only find one location that seemed to be a match. And what you're able to do with this kind of imagery is actually cycle through and find different angles of it on satellite imagery, because people take images from different angles. So there you can actually see the building in question, and to the south, the building that was visible in the video. Now, what we then do is we take 2 points in the video that line up. So that window there is in perfect alignment with the window on this building. And then we draw a line through it, and it gives us the approximate position of the camera. So in this case, it takes us all the way back to the center of the city, to the government building that's being used by the Islamic State. Now, what we also have in the video is a very large flag. And in fact, it's so large you can actually see it on satellite imagery. So if just to the east of this building, we can see, as we cycle through the historical imagery, appearing the shadow of the flag that's cast. So here's the flagpole itself, but here's the huge shadow it's casting. Off to the east, there's another building, a very large red roof building. And you can see that in the background of this composite image we've put together. So you can see the building just on the right-hand side here. Using Panoramio, which is a site where people can share geotagged imagery, we found a photograph of that building. It was actually one of the university facilities. So we've got a clear image of this building. And if you do a side-by-side comparison, you can see the kind of slot windows on the top, these very arched windows, and another row down there. And that's a very unusual building. So this is a very good clue it's the same location. And finally, what we noticed is this is the building, the government building I mentioned before. If you note the balconies, this on top of a building with the same kind of balcony. So based on the imagery in that video, we were able to confirm exactly where this video was filmed in Raqqa. Now, a longer piece of analysis we've been working with the Atlantic Council on a new report where we've been looking at Russia's airstrikes in Syria. And Russia started bombing in September 30th, and they were making various statements. So they were talking about pinpoint strikes against targets of the ISIS terrorist group. And they started posting videos like this, showing those supposed pinpoint strikes against ISIS. And the Russian Defense Ministry, after the first day, they said that the airstrikes were only on the terrorist infrastructure facilities of the ISIS group. And of course, there were discussions, people were saying that's untrue, and of course we have the foreign minister saying, do not listen to the Pentagon about Russian strikes, ask the Russian Defense Ministry. So in a way, that's what we did. We used a platform called Checkdesk, and what a Checkdesk allows you to do is collaboratively verify stuff. It has a pretty simple system. You just add a video on, and then you have a discussion about it, and then you can verify whether or not you believe it's true as a moderator. So people were discussing it, they were given coordinates, they were given Wikimedia links, as you can see there, and we as Bellingcat, we verified that, we double-checked all the information, and we started turning that into a database, and we use a site called Silk, where we can actually map out all the locations. And the great thing about Silk is you can create all this information in the background and have it as the database, but people can make any kind of visualization that Silk allows them to from that information. So here's one. Here's a very simple map of where we've had videos where we've been able to verify them or where some of the information has been false. Here's another example where we have a pie chart where we can see 60% of the videos were false. And false in this case means they were either the location was wrong based on the description of the video, the target they claimed to be hitting was wrong because it wasn't in ISIS territory. Now, as we started doing this, we had saw an interesting response from the Russian MOD's video descriptions. In the first kind of couple of weeks, they were saying ISIS, ISIS, ISIS in most of these videos. As soon as we started saying that they weren't bombing ISIS, they started using more general language. They were saying, oh, actually, we're bombing terrorists, fighters. And we saw that in the same way in the location descriptions. It went from being specific locations, towns, cities, near here, near there, to much broader descriptions. Oh, it's in this region. It's here. So that seemed to be a reaction to this kind of criticism was coming out. But it's very easy for us to say, well, according to this map, you're not bombing ISIS. Well, in this case, we actually used their own map to say they weren't bombing ISIS. We geolocated the videos, and then what we did, we took this map, and we went to Google Earth, and we overlaid the map with Syria. And what we then did is we kind of traced out the areas of control, and we removed the map. So that gave us a very useful map that told us where the Russian Ministry of Defense for ISIS was. Then we took all those videos we've been geolocating, and we put that on there. And the red videos are where they've provided false information. Green is where they've provided accurate information about the target location. So just to give you a couple of examples of what we're talking about. Here we have one of the earliest videos that were posted. This was claimed to be Raqqa, ISIS. So they're telling us it's all the way over here, but in fact the real location is much further to the west. And we're able to find the exact location. It's, I believe it was in Hama or Idlib. And this is the exact location that was being bombed. Purely through crowdsourcing the question of where was this video filmed, we were able to find the exact location. And funnily enough, they'd actually bombed this location previously in another video. And in this video, the angle's a bit different, but just to help you with the transition, just to keep an eye out for that area, and you'll probably see it quite clearly. So there you can see it there. This is actually from the 30th of September, the 24-hour period of bombing when they said they were hitting only ISIS targets with pinpoint accuracy. This is not an ISIS target. This is not pinpoint accuracy because they wouldn't have to have bombed it again the following week. But this gives you an idea of just one of the many videos we found. I think it's over 120 now, where we've managed to actually find the exact location where it was filmed and confirm other details about it. Now, more recently, they've been doing this with videos. They've put a map on the start so you believe them more. But again, we still double-check this stuff. So this was a video, this claimed to be another ISIS facility. This time it was actually claimed to be an area that even the Russian MOD said was under the control of non-ISIS groups. So they kind of use that label quite freely. But one thing with this one is we actually had footage from the ground of this airstrike actually happening. So we have this footage as well, so we've got confirmation from the ground that this was an actual thing that happened. And that gives us more idea about the date. But what was most interesting about this example is this was claimed to be a bakery belonging to the IHH, a Turkish charity. And we were able to show that this was the exact location that was actually bombed in Syria. Now, bakeries aren't the only things being bombed in Syria. Here's a mosque. This was again accused, Russia was accused of bombing a mosque. And again, they came out with a denial. Now, there's something very interesting about this quote. They're talking about a hoax concerning, now this is important, the Al-Farouq Omar bin Al-Khattab Mosque. Now, that name is very important because when we look at this, this is what they're claiming is the Al-Farouq Omar bin Al-Khattab Mosque. And I used various sources. I went online, there's social media sites from these local people, they post photographs. I actually sent them messages on Facebook and say, hey, can you give me more details on these mosques? And they sent me this photograph of the front of the mosque, and it's called the Al-Farouq Mosque. There's no Omar bin Al-Khattab, it's just Al-Farouq. We can see on satellite imagery, it's got this large dome. This photograph that was provided to me shows that it has this very clear, bright blue dome. Yet the mosque we saw bombed earlier does not have a dome. Now, maybe you might say, well, maybe the dome collapsed inside the building, the roof collapsed. Well, from the same video, we've actually got the inside of it, and we can see clearly the roof is still in one piece. So that doesn't seem to be the same mosques, and the local told me that the Omar bin Al-Khattab Mosque was the one that was attacked, not the Al-Farouq Omar bin Al-Khattab Mosque. So it was interesting the Russians used this description, and this was actually a shot from drone footage locals took of the mosque itself, which allowed me to geolocate the videos of the bombing, confirm it was the correct location. Now, if we look at that and compare it to the location of the actual location that was the Russians claimed was bombed, you can actually see there's obviously quite a distance between the two of them. And if we mark them, we can think back to the Russian imagery. They provided aerial imagery of this town. Now, maybe they actually caught the actual location in that imagery. Maybe we can actually have a look and see what was there. Well, unfortunately, what happened was the Russians accidentally put that text exactly on top of the place that was actually bombed. So we can't actually have a look. So, of course, they bombed a mosque, and then they also did this.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أنا منتهى جلال تاريخ 20/10/2015 قام طيران الحرب الروسي بشن غارة على مدينة سرمين. فتبين أنه الغارة استهدفت مدرسة هي ملاصقة للمشفى الميداني، ولله الحمد أن المدرسة كانت خارجة عن العمل بسبب القصف الصارخ للمدرسة. كانت الدفاع المدني كانت قبل ما تنشن الغارة بثواني دقائق عم تطلب من الناس انه تروح من الموقع. وانا بالموقع عم بصور الغارة. فهون شن الطيران ضرب في الموقع اللي انا فيه على بعد مترين أو 3 أمتار وقع الصاروخ مني. أول ما وقع الصاروخ أنا حسيت إن جسمي بده يتمزق من الضغط. من قاب الأرض كل الناس عم تسمع صوت عياط، والناس ما منتبه علي إنه في هون وقع مصاب. الله أكبر! كان في شظير الصدر وحروق بإيدي اليسار وشظايا بإيدي اليمين وإجري اليسار، بالإضافة إلى ردود في كل الجسم والصدر، وشق كبير بالفك السفلي، إضافة إلى شق بالعين. الله أكبر! أنت مضطر أنك تتوجه للموقع، سواء أنت كعملك كموصي أو أنت عملك كرجل منقذ أو مسعف، لأنه في ناس بحاجتك.
So Russia responded to this. They put out this image, claiming to show that the location was completely untouched. They even went to say, as far to say that it was absolutely undamaged, and moreover, the streets suffered no damage. And they presented imagery like this. They actually used a bit of geolocation themselves to prove that the video on the right-hand side showed the location that was supposedly bombed. And they were questioning if, according to our photography of the area after this supposed bombing, it looks completely untouched. How come in your videos it looks like it's damaged? How come the media is claiming this? Well, what we have is various footage from the bombing. This was filmed just before the second bombing. There's 2 airstrikes. This was before the first one. And we can see that in the Guardian video as well. So what we have is this building here, still standing, a small structure. We have a wall that's also still standing. And we also have 4 poles that are here that are also still standing. After the second airstrike, there's damage done to the area. The poles, you can see, are now damaged. 2 of them have been knocked over, 2 are still standing. The building there has been completely demolished. And this footage shows a bit more of the area, clearly a huge amount of damage. And here the poles still damaged, the building's still destroyed, and the wall that was previously partly standing is completely demolished. Now, this is what the area looked like before the bombing, according to Google Earth. Now, if we look up there, we can actually see the poles, 2 pairs of poles casting the shadow. So we know what it looks like on Google satellite imagery, from aerial imagery, when those poles are still standing. We can see just to the right, the square building casting a shadow very clearly, and also the wall and a couple of structures that are part of that wall, again, are still standing. Now, let's have a look at the Russian imagery. If we zoom in, we can actually see all those buildings that were completely demolished are still standing in this image that was supposedly recorded after the bombing occurred. You can see the 4 shadows cast by those poles. You can see that building still standing. You can see the walls still there. So simply, Russia has used old imagery and claimed it's new imagery of that area after the bombing. It's a simple lie, but one we can fact check using open source information by using video from the ground. Now, that wasn't the only denial Russia put out. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch put out a couple of reports late last year claiming cluster bombs had been used by the Russian Air Force. And again, we have another denial. They make a very specific point here. They say there are no such munitions at the Russian base in Syria. Well, before we use the Russian MOD's videos, and now we're going to use the Russian media's pictures, because what we have here from Sputnik is a bunch of cluster bombs next to an aircraft at that airbase. Here we have a jet, and mounted on the jet at the airbase is a cluster bomb. And from the Russian MOD's own page of the airbase, there's a cluster bomb mounted on that aircraft. So that just shows you that by using a variety of sources, we can fact check all kinds of different things. So any questions? I think we're going into the Q&A now. Any questions?
You said that you use check desk
Mm-hmm.
and people contribute to that. Who are the type of people who do that? How do you check that they're not trolls themselves?
Well, because of the way check desk is, you have to be transparent.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Malachy. I work with Reportedly, and we are a small team of journalists based in Europe and North America, and we publish to social primarily and through social. So we leverage online communities, we leverage a lot of the information that Eliot outlined, and apply layers of journalism and crowdsourcing on top of that. And I'm going to take you through one of our investigations, which has a social element to it, but it was not a typical quick fire verification that we would do of a social story that's happening live or today. This took a little longer. It came from a source, a trustworthy source, and I'm just going to go through the steps that we took to develop this, establish the credibility of the information and the documents, and then put it out onto social and create a community that helped to monitor this series of exports from Italy to forces that were bombing Yemen over the course of several months. What we received was a diplomatic cable that was supposedly hacked from the Saudi Ministry of Foreign Affairs by a group called the Yemen Cyber Army. And of course, any group calling itself the Yemen Cyber Army, we really need to establish the bona fides of the document if they say it's from the Saudi Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the document outlined a letter from Burkan, which is an arms manufacturer in the UAE, to the UAE Armed Forces, saying, in order to fulfill our contract with you to make these bombs, we need you to request passage through Jeddah port from the Saudi authorities for this ship, the Jolly Cobalto, that's leaving Genoa in Italy in May, and it's carrying. They gave a list of the bombs that it was carrying. So how we said about that is there were cover letters, and we had the full chain of communications from Burkan to the UAE forces, onto their Ministry of Foreign Affairs, onto the diplomats in Saudi, which then went to the Saudi Ministry of Foreign Affairs and was sent to the Port Authority, the Minister of the Interior, who's the King's son, the Ministry of Transport, and I think that was it. And we had this full chain in Arabic with the English letter and the packing list. And so the first step was to have it translated, and a former Arabic-speaking colleague of mine translated the entire documents, and we had those double-checked with Amnesty's Gulf section because of differences in Arabic script, and Amnesty, bar two words in the letter, confirmed that it was correct. And we, in the meantime, checked dates and checked the phone numbers, in fact, and the fax numbers, and many of those stood up, and the names of the ministers and their departments, the Hijri dates, as I said. And on the top of the telexes, you had MOFA for Ministry of Foreign Affairs, just in the cover header line, and then going to Wazir al-Difa. So if you pop in Ministry of Defense into Google Translate, put it into Arabic and listen to that translation, it's Wazir al-Difa, and similarly for the other departments. So while I was waiting for the transcript to come back, I was satisfied that the document did look good. Examining other key pieces of information, the ship, the Jolly Cobalto, was one of those, along with the packing list, and we'll get to that in a minute. And the ship, I worked with the research team at The Intercept. The Intercept is our sister publication, and they've got a great research team and loads of resources and databases available to them. And we got help there. I was advised to look at Equasis.org, which is a shipping database, and it had listed the Jolly Cobalto as being under the Ignazio Messina Italian logistics company, and on their website they said the ship was still under construction, and it gave other details on it about the ship. It's a container ship. I think it's the largest roll-on, roll-off ship on the water at the moment. But Equasis had logged an inspection of this ship in April, late April, and then by looking at marine traffic, when I checked out Jolly Cobalto there, it was actually in and around Iran at that time, so it was clearly active, and it had been deployed at this point. So the Messina information was outdated, By getting in touch with Marine Traffic, they gave me the 60-day history of the ship. And this was its maiden voyage, and we tracked it from Genoa down through the Suez Canal. It docked in Jeddah and then went around, and it docked in the UAE. And the fact that its maiden voyage also was important to the credibility of the original document, because if you were to fabricate something like this, you would choose one of Ignacio Messina's other ships that also travels that route, and you wouldn't choose a ship that was still under construction according to that website. So that also lended itself to the document. The Saudi authorities, by the way, they admitted that they had been hacked, but they refused to verify that these were the documents that had been taken. And this tranche of documents was then given to WikiLeaks, and they would later become known as the Saudi cables. And they were the source of a number of different articles, and there's still a wealth of information out there for any Arabic investigative journalists who are interested in going through those documents. There's all sorts of fascinating things like Italian submarines docking and requesting shopping trips into Jeddah and all of this sort of stuff. So, but anyway, to get back to this, another key piece of evidence was the packing list, which listed RWM Italia as the manufacturer of, you can see it on the right-hand side, barely, Mk82 and Mk83 bombs. And so in investigating this, I spoke to a number of different experts in the arms industry and the human rights industry. The Stockholm Institute for Peace Research, SIPRI, their researcher said, well, you know, this is interesting. It basically confirms what we know about Burkhan, is that they have the capacity to assemble bombs, but not to make them from scratch, and they buy the parts from European manufacturers. And they had never seen shipping data like this or as recent as this. So it was interesting to them. And they put me in touch with Giorgio Beretta, who's an arms monitor in Italy. And Giorgio helped me to get export licenses granted by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Italy for RWM Italia, which show that indeed they do manufacture these bombs, Mk82s, Mk84s, and also large Mk83s, which becomes relevant. The export licenses from 2011, 12, 13 showed us, and 14 in fact, showed us that they were exporting these and other munitions to Australia, to Saudi Arabia, and now to the UAE and to other places. In speaking to Human Rights Watch about this, I was curious, was there anything unusual? Why would a diplomatic request be needed in this case? Why wouldn't the ship just pass on through? And they said, oh, well, this is interesting. Our researchers have just come back from Yemen, Ole Solvang, and he has photographed Mk83 bombs on the ground there. And what's more, he photographed the bombs made by RWM Italia, and the cage number he photographed up closer. If you zoom in on his photographs, you can get the cage number, which if you Google or go onto weapons websites, you'll see is RWM. So now we have a trail of evidence showing that Italy is manufacturing and exporting bombs to the forces that are bombing Yemen, where a large number of civilian casualties have been recorded, where a large number of civilian areas have been, in fact, targeted irresponsibly, and both Amnesty and Human Rights Watch and CAT UK say illegally. And this potentially goes against international law, European law, and Italy's own law. Of course, I was curious to see if there was any social content from Yemen, because that's pretty much the only way we can report on what's happening on the ground there at the moment. So I looked at the metadata using exifdata.com, where you just upload the photographs, and if there's metadata there, it will give you that metadata, such as the camera type, the focal length, all sorts of information, including in this case the GPS position for the photographs that Ole had sent me. By using wikimapia.org, it's a crowdsourced map, and by plugging in the latitude and longitude, it brought me to the complex that Ole said that he took the photographs in. Of course, you would take him at his word, being a researcher with Human Rights Watch, but this also gave an extra level of verification, but also further details, again in Arabic, by people who had described this building. And those details then, combined with Ole's timeline, allowed me to find video of the buildings that have been bombed on YouTube and to do similar geolocation verification to Eliot, the coloured boxes, identifying, if I just go back one slide, you can see just the corner, the trees, the alignment of them, a palm tree in the background, the shape of the building and the elevation in the middle. Also, there's a white mosque at an angle, this is quite often the case, besides this building. And you can see all of these details here, the mosque, the alignment of the trees there in the building, and the mosque was damaged as well, and further other buildings that you see when the camera flips around. So there we have it. That was the body of the investigation. Bombs are being shipped to this conflict, to forces involved in this conflict. And it was kind of, well, what else is there? And how do we link it to our readers? And we looked at the investors in the parent company, which is a German company called Rheinmetall Defense. And Rheinmetall own RWM Retalia, and RWM Retalia was previously owned by the same company that Burkhan was owned by. So there is a connection between all of those three outfits, and it would seem that they regularly do business together. Invested in the company, in Rheinmetall, is the Norwegian State Pension Fund, the New York State Retirement Fund, about 200 pension and education funds. And so a lot of readers, we felt, who were looking at this may unwittingly be involved in, be benefiting from the arms sales from Rheinmetall. And Rheinmetall, its other subsidiaries, had been involved in other controversial arms sales, not least the supply of potent tear gas to Bahraini armed forces, and there are other things that are listed in the main report. By the way, the short link for this is bit.ly/Yemen bombs, and Yemen bombs 2 and Yemen bombs 3 for the follow-ups that we did. And I think there's a Yemen bombs 4 as well, actually. So we, as a small outfit, reportedly has limited reach. So we were thinking, how do we maximize the presentation of this? How do we bring other elements into it from social and elsewhere? And so I was keen to see from Genoa, was there any evidence of, to illustrate these bombs leaving the port, or Lina Messia there, Burkhan munition systems. They in fact had very slick marketing material on their YouTube channel showing the manufacturer or the assembly of these bombs. And so we using Google Earth, we put together a 2-minute
investigation by
video.
Reportedly has found that bomb parts manufactured by Italian weapons company RWM Italia were shipped in May 2015 to the United Arab Emirates, one of the countries actively bombing Yemen. Loaded in 6 containers aboard the Jolly Cobalto at Genoa port, the bomb parts were shipped through the Suez Canal and on to Jeddah, where transit permits were granted by Saudi ministries at the behest of the United Arab Emirates Embassy. The shipment was transported around the coast of Yemen and on to Dubai, where it was unloaded and transported to Burkhan Munition Systems, an arms manufacturer in Abu Dhabi.
Burkhan's Mk-80 series aircraft bomb is a general multi-purpose ballistics bomb. Our aerodynamically streamlined LBGP bombs are perfect for situations where maximum blast and explosion is required. They can be dropped free fall or used with precision guidance kits.
Documents seen by Reportedly show that Burkhan supplies these bombs to the UAE armed forces. Separate evidence collected by Human Rights Watch researchers and reviewed by Reportedly shows that Mk-83 bombs bearing the labels of RWM Italia were dropped on this building in Sada, northern Yemen. Video shared by a local YouTube uploader and independently geolocated and verified by Reportedly shows the damage to the building. No civilians were killed in this attack. However, human rights documenters believe it is likely these munitions were used in potentially unlawful bombings in Yemen. RWM Italia is a subsidiary of the German arms and automotive company Rheinmetall Defense, and until 2012, Burkhan was also a subsidiary. Financial funds who invested in Rheinmetall and benefited from its billion-dollar revenues include Norway's State Retirement Fund, the New York...
Anyway, get the picture. So, by putting out, video like that, that also made social atoms and embeds available to publishing partners on this. another thing that we did was to break down each of these key findings and key evidence into little social atoms, and with visual cues, short videos, maps, and so on. We thread those together. If anybody who follows Reportedly will know that we reply to our previous tweets if there's a block of tweets that are related to each other. So that allows us to tweet that out again, which I just did earlier on, actually. A number of publishers partnered with us on this. Our sister publication, The Intercept, Mashable, it was translated into 4 or 5 languages in a dozen publications or so. We were very keen to get it published in Norway, where the State Retirement Fund is invested, in Germany, where Rheinmetall is under pressure for people to divest. There's an active divestment campaign from them. El Español reprinted it in Spanish, and several publications in Italy republished it. And this was really valuable to us. The Sardinia Post, for instance, another blogger in Sardinia, Il Post, they translated the whole thing verbatim. And as you can see, embedded the social atoms that we had, and their broadcasters picked it up. So that created a little bit of awareness and momentum about it. People started sending me messages on Facebook, and that really helped us create a community. And I think also a starting point for that is really what we do on Reportedly is tagging people and being generous and retweeting them natively, and just tagging them when they're saying various different things, provided they're putting information out in the public platform. So just being generous like that, it encourages people to get back in touch when things are happening. And in fact, the second investigation in this series, or report in this series, was 2 people in Italy separately DM'd me this morning and said, you might be interested in this. There are bombs on the runway in an airport at the south of Sardinia. They're now flying the bombs out there. I was told that Michel Rufi was a journalist who was at the scene, got in touch with him. He said 747 is going to take off from Baku in a few hours. Actually, sorry, this is the third one, where there was an airplane coming in from Baku to collect an arms shipment that was there. But over the course of the next several exports of bombs, Michel was there. He took photographs and videos and sent them to us. Giorgio Beretta, who I mentioned earlier on, the arms monitor, he helped with translations and with other information and more export licenses that were granted. Francesco, who's a colleague of Giorgio Beretta's, also got involved and monitored what we were saying about this and said there's going to be parliamentary questions. This was when there were bombs on the track, and a parliamentarian there was trying to block the shipment, basically. And he was in Parliament, so we got in touch, and these guys translated what he was saying in Parliament, so we live tweeted that. So there were lots of different elements of this over the course of several months where we collaborated when the time arose. On the third shipment, this was the second shipment, I think, on end of October, yes. So we were monitoring this. We didn't actually know where it was going to go, but we thought it would go to Saudi based on the information that we had, the types of bombs. They had brought in this cargo plane from Azerbaijan. Flight radar were very helpful to us as well. The photographs that we had had an obscured tail number for the flight, so they identified it on the tarmac for us. We thought it might have gone at this stage, but it was still there, and that enabled us then to track it in real time. It flew over Egypt, turned off its responder, and then we picked it up on another app, flight tracking app. And then it's descended in towards Jeddah, and then at the last minute turned towards Taif and landed over there. Taif is a military airport in Saudi. So by watching it, we got all of those details as well about what was happening. And because this was the first shipment, perhaps there was confusion about where it needed to go and was redirected. And again, wove all of those together into videos that you can see on our YouTube channel or Facebook page. And these got quite a big pickup on social media again. And then Internazionale republished the whole thing again, and excerpts from the second ones. And then last month, I think Internazionale has the biggest readership, and then last month Mediaset, they did have a Sunday night primetime program, that does satirical takes on political issues, but they also do investigations. And they have a 13-14% audience share, 2.5 million people, and they reconstructed it on their show and then confronted the Minister for Foreign Affairs about this as well, and interviewed Amnesty's representative in Italy and Francesco indeed, and other people, and wove it all together. So that creates its own pressure inside there. So now there's a community that is actively engaged in pinging each other, and politicians involved from the opposition, 5 Star movement that was founded by Beppe Grillo. So it's just an example of an active community coming together, bringing their skills to bear around a story that affects people in Italy, but also in far away in Yemen. And that's it. I was going to talk just very briefly about some of the tools that we use. And for me, TweetDeck and Twitter lists are our lifeblood. Twitter's my workspace. I get tips from it. I communicate through it. If I need to communicate securely, I'll try to get somebody onto Signal, which is encrypted, and Facebook Messenger. And in Reportedly as well, we have, same as in Storyful, I think Eliza will show you this, we have a standardized toolkit. And in the folders that we have here, we have a lot of the research material that the research team and The Intercept have set up. Our own research material and lots of tools, open source tools around people's Twitter accounts, first tweets, being able to look at geolocated tweets and track where people have been. All these sorts of free tools that are out there. Researchclinic.net, another great resource, are in the folders, and then just icons for the tools that we would use most regularly, be it mapping tools or search tools or geolocation search tools. This is GramFeed, and we used to use this until recently to look for geolocated Instagram photographs. And Instagram tends to be more geolocated than a lot of the other platforms just because of its interface. This is the Hong Kong protests. Banjo is a paid-for tool, and we use Banjo, and it's quite good. The geolocation on it is clever. It takes in not just like latitude and longitude, but it'll take that radius and it'll find out what places are tagged in there and has anybody checked into those various places. And they also have a news team that appear to, around breaking news events, they'll create a first filter, kind of a news event column where you're getting visuals and tweets and information. And then, that's useful to use as for finding sources, and then as a jumping off point to do further investigation. SamDesk is another tool, again, updated its geolocation technology recently to do similar work. We don't use SamDesk as much as we should because we've got a little bit of a publishing glitch, but it has workflow and publishing ability built into it. And its embeds of tweets and social content is quite nicely presented. It also allows you to create lists of sources. So in the Westgate attack, for instance, if you were able to identify 10 or 12 or 15 sources who were on the ground, you could bunch them all together across multiple platforms into one list and monitor their output. Facebook Signal isn't available to all journalists yet. Some have it, and I'm pretty sure journalists here at The Guardian and elsewhere could get it. And I use it simply because Facebook search isn't wholly reliable, and Signal allows you to go into Instagram and Facebook search and put in hashtags and search terms and find out and find sources and information. And I find this very useful, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. It's been useful to me in attacks on Timbuktu and other bases in Mali, in Boko Haram attacks in Nigeria. I've identified people there who are able to provide information and pictures and so on. Yomapic is also a geolocation tool. It has geotagged VK, which is the Russian Facebook in inverted commas, and Instagram photographs. I don't think it has Twitter, and it doesn't, just those two. And the beauty of this is that you can examine people's accounts within Yomapic, and you don't have to go elsewhere. And the reason you do that is you want to establish what's their digital history. If they're posting from the Calais jungle, were they there recently, or is this a once-off photograph, and do they scrape photos from lots of different places? So it's just the reliability of that particular source. TW Explorer, you may find it useful. What it does is it presents a lot of other related terms and phrases that might be used in your search. And what I say to people is put yourself in an uploader's shoes. Try to identify how they would describe the event if they're there tweeting something at a breaking news event or what have you. And AppEG allows you to put in social atoms and pull out more metadata than is presented by the platforms themselves. That's it. Happy for your questions.
So I'm here in the Guardian newsroom, part of the First Draft Live verification workshop that we're holding today. I've got our 3 speakers, and currently in the room, Guardian journalists are huddled in groups, tackling some very tricky verification challenges that have been set actually by Eliot here. But for those of you who are watching from around the world, we thought this would be a good opportunity for you to hear a little bit more from our speakers about some of the different verification challenges that they face. We've asked you to submit questions on Twitter, which you So I'm here in the Guardian newsroom, part of the First Draft Live verification workshop that we're holding today. I've got our 3 speakers, and currently in the room, Guardian journalists are huddled in groups, tackling some very tricky verification challenges that have been set actually by Eliot here. But for those of you who are watching from around the world, we thought this would be a good opportunity for you to hear a little bit more from our speakers about some of the different verification challenges that they face. We've asked you to submit questions on Twitter, which you So I'm here in the Guardian newsroom, part of the First Draft Live verification workshop that we're holding today. I've got our 3 speakers, and currently in the room, Guardian journalists are huddled in groups, tackling some very tricky verification challenges that have been set actually by Eliot here. But for those of you who are watching from around the world, we thought this would be a good opportunity for you to hear a little bit more from our speakers about some of the different verification challenges that they face. We've asked you to submit questions on Twitter, which you So I'm here in the Guardian newsroom, part of the First Draft Live verification workshop that we're holding today. I've got our 3 speakers, and currently in the room, Guardian journalists are huddled in groups, tackling some very tricky verification challenges that have been set actually by Eliot here. But for those of you who are watching from around the world, we thought this would be a good opportunity for you to hear a little bit more from our speakers about some of the different verification challenges that they face. We've asked you to submit questions on Twitter, which you and so I'm here in the Guardian newsroom, part of the First Draft Live verification workshop that we're holding today. I've got our 3 speakers, and currently in the room, Guardian journalists are huddled in groups, tackling some very tricky verification challenges that have been set actually by Eliot here. But for those of you who are watching from around the world, we thought this would be a good opportunity for you to hear a little bit more from our speakers about some of the different verification challenges that they face. We've asked you to submit questions on Twitter, which you have. Thank you very much. So I'm going to launch into those now. And you can watch this chat now for about the next 20 minutes. And then we're going to come back live into the room at about 3:45 London time. So thank you all very much. What an exciting day. What I really wanted to hear from all of you is, as practitioners, people who do this in your daily work, what you're demonstrating today is quite complicated. We're talking advanced verification. So how does that sort of translate into the realities of a busy newsroom, or when you're under all this kind of pressure and there's breaking news or there's deep investigations? What would you say to people who are watching online who say, I haven't possibly got time to do that? I'm going to look at you, Eliza.
I, through my work at Storyful, have worked with a number of our partner news organizations, and what I see day to day is a lot of the work that we do is actually really inherent to the work that journalists are doing day to day. So I think it's about breaking those two things apart and saying, okay, this actually isn't taking you more time because it's embedded into the workflow already. I think for some newsrooms it's helpful to know who's doing what. So if you can have kind of an E-team or an emergency team on social that are looking at these things in particular, so starting with a breaking news event and trawling through social to see what's happening, that's quite helpful. But communication, I think, is really key on these things.
Thank you. What do you think, Eliot?
I think really there's so many simple steps you can take just to begin with. You see an image, you put it through Google image search. That's something that everyone should do from the very beginning. But time and time again, I see, for example, on social media, journalists sharing images that are easily searchable on Google image search to show they're old, but they haven't done that part of the process. So I think there's really simple steps that can be taken that take literally 2 mouse clicks that can, get rid of a lot of the kind of rubbish that's out there.
Malachy?
Yeah, I would agree with Eliza about the communication and also about standardising the toolkit for the newsroom so that everybody is aware of the tools that are available to them, how to use them, what will work in what circumstances, and communicate.
So what about this idea that newsrooms might need their own dedicated team? Is that realistic? Is that necessary? Is it something that all journalists should know? Or, I mean, Eliza, you touched on the fact that it would help, but I mean, is there a danger there that you're kind of segmenting the newsroom and having specialists and everyone else assumes that they will cover the verification?
Yeah, I think you're right in the concerns of segmentation, though I would say a lot of these things I think are very common sense. My background is in print journalism, and if you've done investigations or any sort of research or reporting, you know how to do these things. I think having a good understanding about, as the others have said, the tools behind some of these things in terms of verification work is good, like common knowledge across the newsroom. If you can have these teams built into the workflow, I think it's quite helpful, but I don't think it's necessary. I think we'll get to a point where everyone across the board knows how to do this sort of elemental verification work.
And a lot of the techniques you've demonstrated today, especially the investigative stuff, it's kind of instinctive for journalists. So what's different about social media verification? Is there a difference?
I think there is. I think one thing I find very interesting is how you can engage with people on it. It's just not information coming to you. You can go back, you can ask questions. We also have so many different ways of verifying content now. We get an image and it's a location. We can go to that location on Google Street View, for example, or we can look on Panorama for photographs from that location to see if there's any other kind of photographs that have been taken there. So I think it is not so much that it's a completely new way of doing investigation. It's going to change the world. But what it's really about is being aware of these new tools and methodologies and this new source of information and just learning how to apply them. Yeah, it's about knowing how to uncover the information that you need. The ability to communicate with people, of course, is an advantage, and also having an awareness of the security issues that are around that as well, because you don't want to inadvertently put a source at risk if they're in a dangerous situation. And I would say as well that there are tools out there to help collaboration. CheckDesk, SamDesk, they all have workflow embedded into the tools that they have, so it allows outside input and collaboration within your teams.
Brilliant. One thing that we're pushing today is our visual verification guide that we created at the end of last year. And that sort of works on a traffic light system. For online viewers, you can download that or view it on firstdraftnews.com. So what's different about, why is there a traffic light system? Why is verification not black and white?
Well, I mean, in my own work, you find that you get sources, say, from social media, and then the question is, okay, simple question, how do we know where this photograph was taken? We use geolocation. If we can contact the person directly and ask them, that's another layer, but I would never use just someone's word without that further level of verification. So you kind of, want to build up the kind of credibility of each source by using this traffic light system. Mm-hmm.
And it comes down to triangulation. Who's the second source, and you want to amass as much information to support or debunk an event as possible, and you could do that in a number of different ways. But you're looking for the date, the location, the original source, and then you want to contextualize it. Is what we're seeing, in fact, what we're seeing, and why did this happen? And it's the same old traditional questions that every journalist asks themselves.
So this is one of my favourite questions, which is, do you have to practice, or is it instinctive in terms of spotting a hoax? Do you think now you could see something online and spot it as a hoax straight away? Or is it something that you need to hone your skills, or do you have to do the same checks every single time? Eliza, I'm looking at you. Do you think you've honed your instinct for spotting a hoax?
I think you see it enough and you can smell a hoax, but obviously you need to do the following steps to prove that it was in fact one. I think it is about practice, because you see sorts of the agenda behind a hoax, or the methods behind a hoax enough times that you will start to spot them instinctively. And I think if you're doing this sort of reporting day to day, it will become a natural next step to see them.
Mm-hmm. I think in the case of, for example, ISIS videos, I've seen many videos that have claimed to be ISIS videos that are not, they're fake. A good recent example was footage from a TV documentary about ISIS that was claimed to be real footage. But if you're familiar with the kind of topic in the area, then you'll quite quickly learn to tell the difference between what's real and what's fake. So sometimes it's just being familiar with a specific topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think instinct goes a long way, but I think that if you have a robust process of verification around it, then any hoax will get caught up in that.
So let's talk about the tools. I mean, instinct's one thing, tools really help here. One of the questions has come in specifically about geolocation tools, so I'm looking at you, our geolocation specialist, Eliot. There's a discussion about paid tools versus free tools, and do you need to use any of these paid tools? How much can be done?
You can do an awful lot with free stuff. I mean, you've got satellite imagery from Google Earth, there's historical imagery there. We're also looking at Panoramio as sources of images, Yandex Maps as well is very useful. There's really such a broad range of just basically sources for this material. I think sometimes people feel you always have to have some expensive platform that automates everything for you, but for us it's really looking at every kind of individual grain of sand to figure out stuff about the images and the information we're gathering, and most of the work Bellingcat's done has been with free tools.
The advantage of the Pro Tools is that it can give you infrastructure that you can leverage time and time again, and I think that's the primary advantage. The Pro Tools also, as I said, have workflow embedded in that, and some of them also have publishing mechanisms so that you're not doubling your work, you're not doing your discovery, but you can publish directly from your discovery, provided everything is annotated correctly, and that can be advantageous, but there's a huge amount that you can do with free tools, and for any journalist starting out there's more than enough to get started with.
One of the questions, this is quite a difficult one to answer, I think. It's about how you get started in verification. And I assume that means if you're currently a student, so you're not actually in the newsroom, so you don't necessarily have assignments or you're not working on stories, or it may be that you're in a newsroom that doesn't have a culture of verification and you want to introduce that culture into your newsroom. Have you got any advice or any experience of that?
Yeah, when I was working here previously for the Washington Post, I was part of a team of 2 people. It was often the case where there was a breaking news event and we couldn't actually get there in time to do the work on the ground. There was one case, the hacking of Soldier Lee Rigby in South London, where I immediately went to Twitter, and I didn't have much experience doing this at the time, and I started looking through to see sources that could be on the ground talking about what had happened. And so I think from like the local journalism level all the way on up, you can incorporate these things in your own workflow really quite easily, and just thinking of it as a natural extension of the reporting that you're doing.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I see a lot of people kind of online communities discussing this kind of work. For example, you'll see kind of people bubbling up on Twitter who start looking at videos themselves, looking how other people are doing it, and just becoming part of that conversation. And in some cases, I've personally got them to join my investigation team as volunteer investigators, just based off the quality of the work they're producing on social media sites. But I think, if you're a student or you're just sort of a member of the public who's interested, just get involved with the kind of discussions that are already happening on social media.
Yeah, and there are great resources on the First Draft website, on the verification handbook as well. And if you take those techniques and then just apply them to something that's happening today and do that regularly enough, you'll figure out what tools work for you, and you can put it into practice.
Brilliant. Thank you all very much. Time for coffee, and then we'll be back with the live stream.
I'm a journalist at Storyful. We are a social news agency that focuses on news gathering and verification. Today I'm going to be talking about 3 different case studies which look at real-time verification while reporting on terror attacks and also mass shootings. Unfortunately, reporting on these incidents has become really rote for us. There is a checklist which you go through after one of these incidents takes place. What I'm going to be looking at specifically today is identifying the shooters or attackers involved in these incidents and going about vetting them. On June 17, 2015, 21-year-old white supremacist Dylan Roof walked into a Bible study group at a historic black church in Charleston, South Carolina, and opened fire, killing 9 people. This case study looks at how we were able to identify Roof before he was named publicly by the FBI, and also how we were able to vet his online manifesto. We first found out about the shooting on Twitter. This is a screenshot of my tweet deck. We at Storyful have curated over 1,000 lists which help us monitor basically every corner of the globe. And we monitor these lists manually and also using a few alert tools. One of those internal tools is called AlertBot, which is an algorithm that allows us to feed through all of our Twitter lists, monitoring for trending terms, and then it will point us in the direction of a Twitter list when some of those terms start to trend very early on. So it will give you a better indication of trending topics before they might register on something like Twitter. So after we saw the alert go up, we went to our South Carolina list, and some of the first tweets about the shooting were coming from the Charleston Police Department. And they had said that there was a shooting that took place on Calhoun Street at around 9:30 that evening, and that the suspect was still at large. So as I said, we were closely monitoring our South Carolina list. Now, all of our Twitter lists incorporate sources that you would go to as a journalist in your own reporting, so local officials, emergency response, politicians, police departments. We have a number of local sheriff's offices and their accounts on this list. And so we were scrolling through and found a few tweets from one of those accounts, Darlington County Sheriff's Office, pointing to a link on their Facebook page. Now, this was the first time that we had seen anyone identified in connection with the shooting. I quickly called Darlington County Sheriff's Office and spoke with one of the PIOs on duty, and it became immediately clear to me that this had been shared on Facebook by mistake by whatever poor person was running the account at the time. The BOLO had been distributed for internal use only for police offices in the region to be on the lookout for Roof. But their error gave us a heads up in our own investigation into Roof. So an hour later, when the FBI did name Roof publicly, we were able to publish our investigation and social footprint, allowing clients to then do their own work, further looking into the shooter. So that profile included a number of things. One of those was his Facebook profile. This distinctive spelling of his name made it very easy for us in this case to find his social media profiles, this being one of them showing that he was from Columbia, South Carolina, attended White Knoll High School. And it also gave us more indications as to his connections. It also allowed us to find his arrest information and priors. And so all of this was incorporated into that initial alert we gave to clients. Just as a warning to viewers, the next slide is graphic. So 3 days later, on June 20th, Roof's website surfaced. This image is actually of Russell Crowe, the actor in the 1992 Australian drama film Romper Stomper, which is about a group of neo-Nazis. This was the cover image on Roof's website. The website was discovered online by Twitter user Emma Quengle. It included text of a manifesto as well as a downloadable zip folder of images of Roof. Now, while the images appeared to be original, we were naturally skeptical because the tweets pointing us in the direction of the website were from a source previously unknown to us. So we went about doing our own verification work using free and available online tools. One of those is Whois, which is a tool allowing users to search information about domain names. We searched Dylan Roof's name and found the link to his website. It also told us that on February 9th, 2015, Dylan Roof of 10428 Garners Ferry Road in Eastover, South Carolina, was registered as the administrator to the site. That address matched publicly available records for Roof's address. This is a street view of that address. Another warning, we're going to flip back to that same cover image. So we became much more certain of the website's authenticity when we ran a JavaScript query, which allowed us to find the last date and time that the website had been modified. Through this, we were able to see that the manifesto text was last updated at 4:44 p.m. And then the website itself, the home page, was updated at 5:12 p.m. And this was just hours before the shooting itself took place. Now, I mentioned that downloadable zip folder of images. This image was one of those, a selfie taken by Roof. It shows him in a jacket with flags of apartheid-era South Africa and Rhodesia. The same jacket appears to be the one he's wearing in his Facebook profile photo. And we carried out EXIF data analysis on these images by downloading them and then re-uploading them onto a free tool called Jeffrey's EXIF Viewer. The EXIF data analysis showed that 33 of the images were high resolution and taken with a Kodak EasyShare C1530 camera. Now that camera can be seen in the selfie that Roof is taking there. That's the same camera, which proved to us that the images were original, taken by Roof and uploaded to the site. Now, that folder also had a number of other images which pointed again back to Roof. Here's one image which shows a .45 caliber handgun, the same type of gun allegedly used by Roof in the shooting. Here's another photo which appears to show the same gun as Roof poses among flower pots. And the last photo I'll highlight here was of him leaning against a car with a Confederate flag vanity plate there. It's the same black Hyundai Elantra which was seen in that original bolo posted on Facebook. The next case study I want to highlight is yet another shooting in the US, this one at Umpqua Community College. The gunman who killed 9 people on October 1st at an Oregon college before shooting himself was originally misidentified on 4chan, the anonymous online message board. This next case study looks at how we were able to debunk that 4chan hoax using Snapchat. So in the hours between the Umpqua Community College shooting and the moment that Chris Harper Mercer was identified by authorities as the shooter, this screenshot of a post on 4chan's R9K board was circulating on social media very widely. In it, the post written by an anonymous user on the eve of the shooting read, "Don't go to school tomorrow if you're in the Northwest." Twitter users quickly began pointing to this post as possible evidence of a warning from the shooter. Here are just a few of those tweets. Simultaneously, R9K users started celebrating the shooting, linking to the archived thread and also news reports which seemed to indicate that a disturbing warning message had been shared the night before. News media started following up on these leads, asking 4chan users for help in identifying the gunman. Some even went so far as to ask if 4chan users felt responsible for the shooting itself. This did not go over well with 4chan users, who immediately started generating fake suspects as pranks for media outlets. Here they can be seen floating the idea of pinning the shooting on 4chan user Eggman, who's a really prominent figure on this board. Just minutes later, CNN began reporting that 4chan user Eggman was behind the shooting, as evidenced by these tweets. This was to the delight of 4chan users, who now saw themselves in a national spotlight. And in a thread accompanied by a photo, they named Toby Eggman Reynolds as the gunman. A cursory search for this user on social media did not return any results or likenesses which matched the image, but what it did return was a number of archived and live threads on 4chan indicating that he was a user of the site. Trolling through old mentions of Eggman turned up this YouTube link shared on 4chan showing a video, and I want to play just a snippet of it to give you a better sense of what the community itself is like on R9K.
Okay, so basically I've had about all that I can take of R9K, okay? I'm done with that fucking board. Alright, I am. Totally feel like, you'll be back. No. Okay, check this out. I mean, ever since the black pill video and, you know, I got some more subscribers and some more whatever, all of a sudden, every single thing that I see post, everyone's like, oh, I hate Eggman so much. I hate him. Oh, I fucking hate him. Oh, he's got a car. Oh, he's not a virgin. Oh. Which is true. I mean, you know, I guess I'm a normie. All right, there you go. So I guess I don't belong. Everybody, you know, and that's the general consensus, is that I do not belong on RNK because I am a normie. Okay.
So that video gives you a better sense of what this community is like. R9K is known as a message board where social recluses who refer to themselves as robots gather together and talk about their own isolation and hatred for, quote, normies or normal people, which Eggman refers to himself as here. So again, looking through prior threads and replies, we saw mention that Eggman was actually sharing videos on Snapchat from Seattle, which was the last place he had shared a video from on YouTube. One 4chan user shared his username on Snapchat, at which point we added him, and we were able to see updates and video messages in which he said he was not the shooter, he wasn't in Oregon. And I'm just going to play his video message.
I'm innocent. I was not in Oregon at all, so yeah.
So this was the video message that he sent back to us after we asked for more details about his reported involvement in the shooting. So while national media continued to report that he was behind the shooting itself, and the gunman was confirmed to be dead at the scene, Mills Wood replied to us with this video message saying he was innocent. This was probably the last in a series of alerts we had sent to clients, giving them an indication that, you know, don't report this. He has no link to the shooting itself. But from the start, from our understanding of 4chan, we did caution those people who asked us from reporting anything on the board as fact. The last example I want to talk about focuses on one of the Paris attackers. On November 13th, 2015, 20-year-old Bilal Hadfi blew himself up outside of the National Soccer Stadium in Paris as part of a series of coordinated attacks which left 130 people dead. 3 days later, he was named as one of the suicide bombers. At this point, I started looking into his history online to see if there were any indications which could reveal more about his radicalization. In a search for him on Facebook, a few results came up, including this Facebook profile registered for a Billy Duhood, username Berkano Versailles. According to Belgian news reports, Hadfi was from the Nieder-Overheembeek section of Brussels and was involved in the Islamic State sleeper cell based in nearby Molenbeek, which is where the Paris attacks were conceived. Versailles is the name of a housing estate in Hadfi's old neighborhood, but it is also the name of a violent street gang with which he was reportedly linked. The name Versailles featured prevalently across his posts and photos on the page, including in this image from one of the housing estate tower blocks, and this image of a group of young men gathered around a street sign. That distinctive street sign tallied exactly with this one on Google Maps Street View, which shows a section of Avenue de Versailles in that same neighborhood. So this gave us an indication that the Facebook profile was indeed linked to at least content from Hadfi's old neighborhood. One of Billy Duhood, one of his friends, commented on a number of photos and posts with the word Daesh, an alternative spelling for Daesh, an acronym for the Islamic State's Arabic name, which is seen as an insult by the group. When contacted by Storyful, this Facebook friend confirmed that the Billy Duhood account belonged to Bilal Hadfi, and he said that he knew that because he was his cousin. Hadfi's cousin, who said he lived in Morocco, was completely unaware of any link between Hadfi and the Paris attacks, but he said that he had also not spoken to his cousin in at least 2 years because of his known affiliation with the Islamic State group. In a series of messages between myself and this man, he said that the last time that he had seen Hadfi was in Sadia at a beach in Berkane, Morocco in August 2014. That same time period was when Bilal had shared a number of photos like this of him sipping cocktails in swimsuits by a pool. I asked his Facebook connection if this photo was taken in Morocco, but he said that it was actually from Turkey. He said that before Hadfi had visited him in Morocco, he had stopped in Turkey. And this gave us a better indication of the timeline of his travels in the Middle East. Hadfi reportedly became radicalized in spring of 2014 by a Belgian imam, and later traveled to Syria in early 2015. So this fits in between those two periods. When Hadfi originally left Belgium, he told his mother that he was going to Morocco for a vacation, which it seemed was true based on his Facebook photos. Hadfi's cousin said he had no idea about his cousin's travels to Syria. This is another image shared around the same time. So a lot of that is really common sense reporting, looking at available information on social profiles about a person, seeing what their connections are, any evidence they may have left behind, where they had visited, what photos they had shared, posts that might indicate their state of mind before an attack. Another strategy that I took in looking into Hadfi was setting up persistent searches for his name on Twitter. And that surfaced one particular user who was tweeting at a number of media organizations saying that he had known Hadfi and he had gone to school with him. So in a conversation with that person, he claimed that Hadfi was one of his high school classmates at St. Peter's College Jet in Brussels. He described Hadfi as a soft-spoken teenager who enjoyed Taekwondo and video games. The same person also posted on Facebook saying, one of the terrorists that blew himself up at the French Stadium used to do Taekwondo with us and was at my school. I feel disgusted and shocked all at the same time. What was interesting about this post was the community around this user. And many of them responded saying they too had recognized Hadfi and were stunned by his involvement in the attack. So this gives us a huge cohort of people to reach out to, learn more about Hadfi's background. So that same classmate who wished to remain anonymous shared this class photo with us. He described this as Hadfi in his second year at the high school in Brussels. And we looked up the school's website and saw that available promotional photos of the school tallied with the background imagery in the photo, and the school itself confirmed that Hadfi was in attendance from 2009 to 2010. I spoke to a number of journalists who work at our partner news organizations who had come into Brussels following the attacks to investigate the story further. And many of them weren't exactly sure where to start. A lot had gone to Molenbeek, which is where the sleeper cell was based. But I suggested that some of them might go to Hadfi's old neighborhood, which many of our clients ended up doing. Some also spoke with members of the school. So this just gives you a little bit of an indication of how you can harness social and available information to find out more about someone's history. So these are just a few of the many people we have investigated as part of our recent reporting on terror and shooting attacks. And I hope that the tools and strategies that I highlighted will prove useful in your own reporting. Are there any questions?